Thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Tyler Constable, Director of Sales Engineering with Syslink Xandria. Very fortunate to have Chance Veasley with us as well from Velocity Technology Solutions, SAP Senior VP.
Afternoon.
So quick question before we get started. Anyone here currently running in the cloud, SAP in the cloud? Anything at all? Anyone? One. Anyone thinking about in the game plan in the next couple of years? So a couple more hands. And Chance, is this kind of what you're seeing in the industry?
Yes, we generally see folks thinking about getting to the cloud, but we generally see more. It's kind of the de facto standard now for anybody that's starting an SAP implementation or an SAP upgrade. Considering the cloud is more the de facto standard now.
Yeah. So what we're seeing really when we talk about the drivers to the cloud, the accelerate time to value, improve operational and cost efficiencies, and that's really what we're going to focus today's discussion about. And then lastly, operating more securely than others on-premise. And Chance, I don't know, are there other things you're seeing, other reasons why companies are deciding to move to the cloud?
I think really they want to refocus their IT resources, who are so precious, on being more agile and being able to extend application functionality, really achieve the dream of business transformation and digital transformation. So unencumbering their IT resources from the day-to-day to really allow them to do those strategic projects that help them leapfrog their competition. That's why people are adopting the cloud.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So really when we talk about cloud, what do we mean? Because really everyone in their own mind has their own vision of what is the cloud. So we've got the private cloud, and we're seeing a lot of organizations push past that. Then we have the infrastructure as a service, and that's really what we're going to be talking about today with the AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and Alibaba. And then of course, there are the platform as a service. So as you know, we've got the HANA Cloud Platform, everyone probably knows that. Velocity as well with the platform as a service. And then lastly, software as a service. So you think of your Concurs, Fieldglass, SuccessFactors, all of those. So really today, we're going to be focusing here in this section of the infrastructure as a service, and how do we help organizations and enterprises automate what they can do inside of those. So when we talk automation, there's two different things we need to think about, because there's a lot of scale. That's what people mean when they talk about automation in the cloud, is scaling. There's a couple different ways you can scale. There's scaling up, where we take one single server and we add additional resources to that server. So think of like CPU and memory, you just keep adding onto that one server. Then there's scaling out, where we're taking one system, but we're adding additional servers to it. So from the SAP technical world, that really means application servers and how we can keep adding. So this is going to be very important in just a few minutes as we get into how we can really make a very dynamic running system. But that is really the hard part here. So running SAP on the cloud is not as dynamic as you'd expect. I think a lot of organizations that are thinking about going into AWS, Azure, GCP, Alibaba, think that you're just going to forklift your SAP system, drop it on the cloud, and then say, scale. And that's not really how it works. So a couple of things. ASUG did a study last year. This is actually at the end of 2018. There's some major things that kind of pop up here. If you look at inconsistent standards, is one of the biggest challenges ASUG found across their customer base or in the cloud. If you think about 2017, that wasn't even on the map at all. That's now at 44%. Also more expensive, jumped from 18%, nearly doubled to 30%. So a couple big key factors in here. We're going to talk about a couple of these things. Chance, I don't know if there's other things you're seeing as well of why companies, what kind of things your customers are seeing as they move to the cloud.
And this is a very complete list. We generally see a lot of these objections, but organizations that are progressive are also finding the right partners. And so we remove these objections to the cloud and challenges, not only with people and skill sets and expertise, but also with tools like Syslink Xandria that help us enforce a reference architecture, so we have those standards, and provide a set of automation tools and insight so that we can help make sure that the business users get the value out of the investment of their ERP applications. And so this is the right list of challenges, but there are providers out there in the market that help you remove these challenges so you can realize the benefits of the cloud even faster.
Yeah, thank you. So really, all these cloud providers have their own scaling set of tools. But really, some of the challenge too is not every organization migrates everything to the cloud provider right away. They might have ECC up in the cloud and BW back on-prem. They might have just development and quality. There's always usually a mix. So the cloud provider, their visibility obviously is not going to be on anything that's still on-prem. So where Syslink Xandria fits in is that it can actually watch both the cloud metrics and on-prem metrics all from one single system. And the other important thing to note is they can actually look inside of SAP. That's really what we're trying to do, is monitor what's within SAP itself. The cloud provider obviously is not going to be looking inside of SAP. That's not really what they're trying to do. They're trying to see how they can automate the VM, the OS, and the database layer, really. So what that means we can do with Syslink Xandria in place, you can actually help control your cloud costs. Because if you're paying per metric, per minute, or per hour, you can really, if you don't need your non-production systems over, let's say, the weekend, Syslink Xandria can, on Friday night, shut down your SAP systems and then shut down the cloud systems, and then essentially you don't have to pay for your very minimal payments then until Monday morning, automate them, bringing them back up again. If you were to try to do this with just one of the cloud providers and just rip out the operating system out from underneath the system, your SAP system could crash, and that may lead to some pretty poor things in your database and maybe some pretty challenging parts there. The other way to help scale now, so again earlier there's scaling up and there's scaling out. Obviously scaling up is fairly easy if we see that there's operating system metrics that are starting to cause some performance issues. We can just stack on more CPU, more memory. But there might be situations where there's actually things within SAP that cause performance issues. So for anyone non-technical out there, I always give the example of something called work processes. They're like little work engines inside of SAP. As an end user, or as you run something in batch, when you need to use the system, it quickly grabs from a pool of set of work processes, quick use it. It could be a fraction of a second, it could be an hour, depending on what you're running, and then puts it back in the pool. Well, if a lot of things are running and that pool diminishes, your work processes run out, and now a queue builds up, and that is essentially, to an end user, it looks like performance issues. So how do you do that, or how can you automate this? With Syslink Xandria, you can have a sleeping app server off to the side, and as it recognizes that there's performance problems in SAP that the cloud provider cannot use, it can start up that application server, or start up that cloud instance, and then bring up the application server from the SAP side, offload those work processes to a different system, and away you go. So it's very dynamic at this point in time, very fluid, really something that in the SAP system, in the architecture world, typically, historically, been very, very difficult to do. This would take hours or days to get past approvals and everything. Now it's snapping your fingers, it can be done. So, and this is just a quick snippet of what it looks like within Syslink Xandria. This is the software. And again, you can see across the top, we can be multi-cloud, multi-platform. We can give some performance, some predictive resource consumption. So how big are we going to be out in the future? Given the database size now, how big is it going to be in the future, file system size, so on and so forth. So really kind of wrapping it up, the big challenges when moving to the cloud and how you can help manage these scenarios is being able to scale down correctly without having to cause any major issues to your systems, how to scale out as well, automatically, and then lastly, in the multi-cloud environment where you're across multi-clouds. And Chance, I don't know, maybe you can talk a little bit about how Velocity utilizes Xandria and also outside of Xandria to really help their customers with all of this.
So as a customer of Syslink Xandria and managed service provider, we've done over 1,000 go-lives in the cloud, and we couldn't be good at what we do and efficient without tools like Syslink Xandria. And I think one of the challenges that organizations often see if they're adopting the cloud is how do they also transform their internal IT processes to be more of a DevOps type organization or more agile. And the tools from Syslink Xandria give you the insight so you can automate your response, right? And take people out of the equation, not because you're trying to reduce costs, but you want to redeploy the most precious asset you have to those things that are strategic in your organization. So Syslink Xandria helps you achieve the promise of really transforming your IT organization into DevOps through that level of automation and the level of consistency of allowing us to deliver a reliable service to our end customers. So couldn't be happier with the Syslink Xandria tool and how it helps us serve our SAP customers in the cloud.
Thank you. And I like how you said the most precious assets, and that's good. Making sure that they're in the right areas. So that's great. So if you do have any other questions for Syslink, we are right behind us here, and we're the red shirts and a sea of green shirts. If you've got some questions for Velocity, they are literally the next row over. You can't miss them. They have an awesome race car in their booth, one of the coolest booths here by far. So.
We're also hosting happy hour at 4:30, so come on by over.
Oh, perfect time. Well, thank you, everyone.